So if you are someone who has been considering starting locks but you would like to know what your options are for starting them, then you want to keep on watching. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I have a lot of videos on my channel about locks and maintaining locks, including how I started my own micro lock journey. But I realized I never really talked about the options and the methods that are available for starting locks, especially for those of you who may be interested in starting your locks and want to use a method other than the interlocking method. So in today's video, we're discussing 8 different methods that you can use to start your locks, and we'll be discussing the pros and cons of each. Now, of course, these methods are in no particular order of importance. They're just different ways that you can go ahead and start your locks. But hopefully after watching this video, you find a method or two that is best suited to your particular preference and your overall lifestyle. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the methods. The first way you can start your locks is comb coils. Comb coils has been around for a while. They're considered the most traditional way of starting locks, especially if you're looking to start traditional size locks. Comb coils are the most common method of starting traditional size locks. Now, how do you go ahead and do comb coils? Well, it's pretty simple. It's as simple as it sounds. Comb coils are formed with the use of a comb. You section your hair off, you use the comb on that small section of hair, and you twist the hair in a downward spiral motion with your comb. So it's pretty much taking hair, using your comb, and just twisting in a downward spiral motion away from the roots, and that's gonna form a coil. So what are the pros of using comb coils? Comb coils can be used on very short hair. We're talking about maybe 2 to 3 inches of hair to start with, and they're also pretty quick to install. I mean, you're depending again on the thickness of your hair and length of your hair, of course. They're quick to install. It's just pretty much going through your hair and sectioning off hair and using a comb to twist that. Now, what are the cons of using comb coils? Of course, comb coils, when you use them, it's just your hair twisted, so you're gonna need some type of product to help the twist stay in place. Most times they're commonly installed with the use of gels or beeswax or some other form of wax. So those are the type of products that are typically used when installing comb coils. Another con is that, especially for people with longer hair, it takes a longer time for the lock to form, because the longer that your hair is, the more hollow the inside of a coil becomes, which means think of it like a straw. The inside of the straw, it's gonna be nothing there. And the way comb coils form locks is the hair has to start meshing together to form a lock. So the longer your hair is, chances are the more hollow inside of the coil is, and the longer your hair is gonna take to lock. Another con is that they can unravel pretty quickly, especially if you're someone that sweat a lot, or even when you wash your hair. Be mindful that they're gonna come undone. Pretty much, I know back in the day, and I don't know if that's still a method that's used, but when it came to washing comb coils, people would usually use like a cap and wash it some way somehow. So I don't know if that's still used, but just be mindful that that's a con of using comb coils, that it likely unravels pretty easily. The second method that you can use to start your locks is the strand twist. And again, it sounds just as simple as it is, or it is just as simple as it sounds. It's pretty much you taking a section of your hair and 2 strand twisting. Like you split a section of your hair in 2 and you just 2 strand twist, or twist the 2 pieces of hair over each other, and you form a twist that way. What are the pros of using 2 strand twist? Well, again, it can be installed on hair that's not relatively long. We're talking about anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of hair you can install 2 strand twist on. Again, just like the comb coils, they could be relatively quick to install depending on the thickness and the length of your hair. You're probably most likely going to be able to install in one sitting. Another pro of 2 strand twist is that they can be used on thin and fine hair to a certain degree, but they can be used on thin and fine hair. Another pro is that they are best suited for more textured hair. So the more kinky your hair becomes, the better suited your hair is for 2 strand twist. What are the cons of two-strand twist? Well, eventually as your hair begins to lock, you may find that you realize the pattern of the twist in the locks, and it may take maybe 6 months to a year depending on the rate of growth of your hair for the pattern of the two-strand twist to actually disappear from your hair. Sometimes it could also unravel depending on the length of your hair. If you started with extremely short hair, it can unravel. I know when I started with my hair in certain places, especially the back of my hair, sometimes they unraveled, and so that's a likelihood if you install two-strand twists on very short hair. And another con is that they can't really be used, or they're not best suited for extremely thin and fine hair, as you know, your hair is most likely very smooth at that point. There's no friction within the strands to really hold the twist in place. The third way you can start your locks is box braids or braids or plaits, and again it's pretty similar to the two-strand twist, except that instead of sectioning a section of hair into 2 sections, you're sectioning a little piece of hair in 3 sections and braiding that. Pretty simple. What are the pros of using braids or plaits to start locks? Well, again, just like two-strand twist and the comb coils, they can be installed on short hair, maybe even much shorter hair than you would be able to install two-strand twist on, because at that point you're braiding, so chances are the hair might be able to stay in place better than it would if you use two-strand twist. Again, it's also quick. Depending on the length and thickness of your hair, most likely you will be able to install your braids probably in 1 or 2 sittings, depending on how small you're installing your locks, that is, but chances are you're going to be able to install it in about 1 or 2 sittings. And it can be used on finer textured hair. So again, we said with the two-strand twists, you're probably looking for more textured hair. Well, with the braids, you get a little bit of leeway if you're trying to transition from permed hair into the lock journey. Braids might be a good option for you. And when I say braids, I'm talking about using your own hair that's braided, not like braid extensions. I'm talking about just braiding your own natural hair. Now, what are the cons of using the braid pattern or the braid method starting your locks? Again, just like the two-strand twist, you're probably gonna notice that the pattern of the braid is in your locks for a much longer time, and depending on how long your hair is when you actually do install braids, chances are that pattern may never really go away. So you might more likely have, or it may take forever for it to go away. It's easier if you start your hair that's short. If you started braided, then eventually as your hair grows out, the braided portion of your hair is going to grow out as well, so it's going to be much quicker for that part to disappear. However, if your hair is much longer, we're talking about maybe neck length to much longer than that, then be prepared for you to have that pattern for a while, except if you're comfortable with maybe cutting it off. Another con is that the ends may unravel a little bit, because sometimes usually when you braid your hair, you do have the ends that are loose, and so that might come undone a little bit maybe when you wash or things like that. And the final con is that sometimes the braiding pattern leaves your lock feeling and looking a bit flat. Again, you are braiding compared to a twist that has a bit more of a rounded shape to it. A braid is more flat, so that is definitely gonna cause at least some parts of your locks to look flat. The fourth way that you could start your locks is interlocking. Interlocking have become quite popular in the recent years for starting locks, and it's a well-known method of starting locks when it comes to sister locks and micro locks. And the way you interlock, it's pretty much taking a section of your hair, loose hair of course, and you would pretty much twist the end of the lock, or you twist the end of the section here, and you're gonna loop that end into the root or the base of that section here in multiple different directions. Typically people use 4 different directions: north, south, east, west. That's what's used for interlocking, but that's pretty much how you would do that. What are the pros of interlocking? Well, obviously once you do it, you're pretty much locked instantly. Yes, you might be able to comb it out, but interlocking allows you to technically be locked right away once the lock is installed. Another pro is that it can be washed immediately and you don't have to worry about unraveling or the locks coming undone. That can be particularly useful if you are someone with a very active lifestyle, or you do sweat a lot. Then interlocking may be the way for you. Interlocking can also be used on very fine or very textured hair, so it's favorable to both types of hair. If you have more textured hair, it's well suited for that, but you can also use it on very fine and smooth hair. And of course, another pro is that you get longer time between maintenance sessions. You don't have to maintain your hair as often as you would if you were palm rolling. Instead of 2 times a month or once a month, you could probably go up to 6 weeks to 8 weeks, maybe even longer, depending on the rate of growth of your hair. Now, what is a con? A con of interlocking is that it can be very time consuming, especially if you don't know how to do it starting off. There could be a steep learning curve and it's going to take a while. Okay, it doesn't really matter the size that you're going with, but just the mere motion of interlocking in general, it's going to take a while. So don't expect to be able to do it in one sitting at all. Most people who use interlocking to start their locks take a couple days, maybe a week. And that's if you're doing it yourself. If you're going to a consultant to get it done, it may take 2 days. You might have to do it in 2 sittings with multiple hours, maybe anywhere from 8 to 12 hours per day to install your micro locks or cis locks. Another con for some is that it may cause your hair to look a bit ropey. It might give your hair that little bit of a ropey look to it versus a smooth look that you would get with the comb coils. Interlocking can cause your locks to be ropey. I don't know if you can see the texture of my locks. If you cannot, I have tons of videos regarding my hair, so feel free to check that out. But that might be a con for some, the ropey look of the lock. And another con is that depending on how you do it, if you're not familiar with doing it correctly, you may actually cause damage to your hair in the long run, or maybe even starting off. So be sure that if you're going to use interlocking to start your hair, you know what you're doing. The 5th way you can start your locks is backcombing. Now, backcombing is not as common nowadays, but it's pretty much mostly used on very fine and smooth hair. Think Caucasian type hair. And the whole concept of backcombing your hair is you're using, again, a section of hair, and instead of, you know how you would typically comb your hair from the roots down to the tip of that section here, well, with backcombing you're working in the reverse way. So you're using your comb on the section piece of hair and you're combing back towards the roots or the scalp, and that's what forms the matted hair that allows the hair to kind of form a lock. So what are the pros of using backcombing? Well, 1, they're formed instantly. Again, you're backcombing the hair and meshing hairs together, so they're gonna form instantly. And 2, they can be used on very fine textured hair, like Caucasian type hair. It's pretty much a common way of starting locks on Caucasian type hair. The cons for using backcombing, again, it could take a little bit of time, so it can be time consuming. So again, don't expect to do it in one sitting. Another con is that the locks may not actually be as uniform as you would like because you're backcombing, so chances are the lock is going to look very lumpy, very knotty, kind of, it's like flat and round in certain parts of the lock. So just know that it's not going to have that uniform cylindrical look that you might be expecting. And the final con for backcombing is that eventually you may find loose hairs or holes in your locks, and that's because as the matted hair eventually, or the knots that had previously been formed in the locks, makes its way down the lock, you're probably gonna find more holes and spots in your locks. The 6th way of starting your locks is freeform. And if you don't know what freeform locks are, it's pretty much allowing your locks to pretty much just form naturally and as organically as possible. You are not manipulating your hair in any way. You just have your loose natural hair and you let it be and you let it do what it wants to do. So what are the pros of freeform locks? Of course, very little manipulation. The locks form on their own without any effort at all from you. Another pro is that it's more about the journey than the look. For some people, embarking on a loc journey is really about learning the journey and what they might learn throughout the journey about themselves. And so freeform locs really help you to enjoy the journey and learn about the loc journey more than caring about the looks of the locs. The con of freeform locs is that it may not be professional for some, depending on the industry. If you work in a certain industry, it may not really be considered as a professional hairstyle, so that's definitely something you want to think about when you're doing that. And another con is that, well, you really have no control over the shape of your locks and how they turn out. Some may turn out small, some may turn out very big. You definitely have absolutely no control as to the size and the look of your locks when using freeform. The seventh way you can start your locks is by using crochet or instant locks. And what crochet or instant locks are is, again, you're using your own hair, but you're using a crochet needle to pretty much form the locks on your own head. It's meshing the hairs together with the crochet going in and out to form the lock. Pros of crochet or instant locks: again, locks are formed instantly. The moment you keep doing it on one lock, you pretty much have meshed the hairs together and you have a lock. Another pro is that you don't need any products. You can start with as simple as water and oil if you choose to, but you definitely need no products whatsoever for crochet or instant locks. Another pro is that you don't have to worry about unraveling, because usually, if done correctly, the lock is tightly formed once you've completed the lock, and so you don't have to really worry about unraveling. And the fourth pro is that, again, it can be pretty much used on any textured hair, but it's mostly best suited for more textured hair. The more texture your hair has to it, the more likelihood that instant or crochet locks are gonna work for you. A con is that, of course, there might be a steep learning curve. If you don't know what you're doing, you're probably gonna cause more harm than good to your hair. So definitely, if that's the route you're going, make sure you check a couple videos out on YouTube or have someone do it for you. Another con is that if you're trying to get a hair salon to have your hair done, chances are they might not really know what you're talking about, or they oftentimes confuse it for latch hooking, which are not the same as crochet and instant locks. So be definitely sure and certain that if you're going to a hair salon to get your hair done, that they do actually understand what you mean. Show them a YouTube video if you have to. You don't want anybody messing with your hair when they say, yes, I can do it, and only to find out later on that they definitely didn't know what you wanted. So do some research on that if you're gonna use crochet and instant locks. And the eighth and final way that you can start your locks is, of course, one that has become quite popular in recent years, and that's using loc extensions. And again, loc extensions are pretty much formed almost in the same way as crochet or instant locks, except that you're using hair, oftentimes maybe afro kinky hair, and the locks are formed with that hair and then attached to your own hair, hence loc extensions. So you're pretty much having locks that are formed with hair extensions, and then they're being added to your own hair with the use of the crochet or instant method. So of course, the pros to that: you have locks instantly, and you can also start at any length that you choose to. You don't have to necessarily start short if you don't want to. You get to skip the loc journey, which is most times the reason why people use loc extensions, is they try to bypass what are called the unfavorable stages of the loc journey. So that's another pro. You get to bypass those if you're not really someone for that, and you get to be locked instantly. And also, hey, you can maintain your hair right away. Most times when your loc extensions are installed, you get your hair to be pan rolled, your roots are twisted, and you're styled right away if you choose to. A con of loc extensions is, if you're someone who's considering locking your hair and want to embrace the journey, well, you really miss out on that with loc extensions. You don't get to really go through certain parts and stages of the loc journey and embrace certain things and learn certain things about the loc journey. So that's one thing. If the loc journey is more than just a hairstyle to you, that's something you may want to consider. Another con is that loc extensions are very time consuming to install. Let me tell you, they are very time consuming. very time consuming. So be sure, if that's something you want to do or get done, that you're dedicating maybe a whole day and more to get it done, depending on the size as well, because it can take quite a long time. And another con that goes off of that is oftentimes, because of how time consuming lock extensions are, they can get quite expensive. People who install lock extensions charge anywhere from $500 and upwards, and that's just for installation services. That's not even for forming the locks for you, which most people, if they do install the locks for you, that's a service that they may also offer, that you would order the number of locks, or you're able to purchase it online and they're able to custom make it. So because lock extensions are mostly custom made, they're pretty pricey. Okay, so you may be looking at $500 to over $1,000 just for installation, and add on top of that the fee and the cost to purchase the hair, to get your hair done. So these are 8 different ways that you can start your locks. If you were watching this video and was considering starting locks, but you were on the fence as to the method that might suit you best, I hope after watching this video you found it useful and you gained some insight as to a method or two that's best suited for you and your lifestyle. If you have any comments, questions, or video requests and suggestions, please leave them down in the comment section below. If you liked this video, definitely go ahead and give me a thumbs up, or give me a thumbs down if you didn't like it. Either way, it helps my channel out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay blessed, and I will see you guys next time.